welcome everybody. So glad y'all could make it tonight. How we doing? Good. So happy that you're here and spending some time with us. And obviously you guys see we're recorded tonight. So this will also be for going online so that people after the fact can go back and watch this and make sure we're getting the information. But I'm excited to be here tonight. Obviously, if you haven't seen already, this is going to be a little bit of interactive. If you have not in the past gone and filled out the LRQ, the Life Risk Assessment Questionnaire, is you can take your phone out, okay, and put your camera, and put it over top of that little square there, and it's going to give you a link to what's called the LRQ, and basically it's going to be a survey and where you're at with the 5 essentials, and if there's any areas that we need to work on, some of the things we're going to be talking about tonight, okay? So, obviously tonight we are getting into raising healthy families, okay? Such a crucial thing, that we're just going to really spend some time diving in, hopefully the next 3 hours or so. I'm just kidding, I'm not going to keep you that. So, I'm not going to keep you that long. I'm going to try to get you out of here early as possible, okay? But for those of you watching at home, or those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Marcus Gall. I'm the owner and founder of Essential Family Chiropractic right here in Brighton, Colorado. Okay, a little bit of who I am and who we're about, or what we're about here at EFC is, I've been doing this now for over a decade, is helping families to be as healthy as possible. Okay, teaching them about the 5 essentials, which we're going to get in to discuss tonight. But really, it's about creating the healthy families. Okay, and that looks different for every family. Okay, whether that be people who are trying to get out of pain, get off medication, lose weight, or they just want their family to be as healthy as possible. Helping them in whatever their goals are health-wise. Okay, as a MaxLiving doctor, again, which we'll talk about, is I teach the 5 essentials, so I'm certified in being able to apply those 5 essentials and achieving those results, but also, helping with top-level spinal correction. In 2016, I was invited to go down to Brazil to actually take care of our U.S. Olympic wrestling team. Of course, my biggest accomplishment, best dad in the world, okay? Or that's what the mug in my cupboard says. And if that doesn't prove that I'm a dad, I don't know what will, okay? So, yeah, dad jokes. This one's been going around is what's a chiropractor's favorite music? Hip hop. So if you don't get groans and eye rolls, then it's not a good dad joke. So no. So but obviously this is our family. Just took this picture this weekend. So my wife Jenna, who was literally with me from the beginning when we opened our office 7 years ago here in Colorado, and then our 20-month-old son Weston, who we adopted. Obviously, he doesn't look like either of us, so I can probably put 2 and 2 together. So, but that's our beautiful family, and he is literally the joy of my life. Okay, but even before I had a family, family was something I was passionate about in helping families. Okay, and who we are as an office really stems back to, and what we do really stems back to our mission. Okay, our mission here at EFC is creating a culture of health here in Brighton, Colorado, and really all the surrounding areas. By helping people reach their God-given health potential, okay? And everything we're going to talk about tonight really starts with that. That has to be our starting point, is that right there. And really it's that last part, okay? Is if we miss that last part, helping people reach their God-given health potential, the fact that each and every one of you guys right now was created with an amazing potential for great health, okay? Your family members at home, all of your loved ones, all the people out in our community, okay, they all were equipped with that exact same health potential, okay? If you don't believe in that health potential, then all the stuff we're going to talk about, you're basically just wasting your time, okay? It's because you're going to miss of all the things, all the power that you really have in your health, okay? But unfortunately, that's very prevalent right now, is that belief that, we're just meant to be broken, we're meant to be sick, We're meant to be on medications, disease, and really have no control. Our genetics or the way our parents live, all the diseases our parents ran into, that we're doomed to the same thing. Okay, and I flat out reject that. Okay, but again, is everything that we're going to talk about is really based on that tonight. Okay, and so when we look at really where that bad belief comes from, I call it bad BS, the bad belief systems. Okay, when it comes to health. Okay, that has now bled over into just our society in general. Okay, one of the saddest things for me that I've seen, especially throughout this never-endemic, okay, is seeing pictures of kids at school lined up at least 6 feet apart or sitting at their desks and having these plastic barriers so they can't even interact like kids, having masks draped over their faces. Now, I'm very clear in the fact that is like, I'm not against those things because of I don't care about people, that I don't want people to be healthy. I don't want to keep our kids and our teachers safe, or really anybody. But what that means, or what that is instilling in our kids, is what makes me the most sad. Is it instills in them a level of fear. Okay, they go through life and they think, well, I have to be scared of germs. I have to be scared of whatever the next virus is. That they've already been talking about this new, the Nihon virus coming out now, the next thing that's going to kill us all. And so it literally instills this fear in them, and that bleeds over to their entire life. We're going to literally have generations of kids who think that their body's not strong enough to fight off disease. Okay. And that they're going to have to wear a mask for the rest of their life, okay? And again, that to me is kind of scary, because we don't even know the mental ramifications of what that's going to do to our kids in the long term. And like I said, that's bled over. Statistically, you can look at our you can call it healthcare, but it's not really healthcare; it's sick care. You can look at our model. The real epidemic that we have is epidemics of chronic disease. Of obesity, okay, resulting in a dramatic impact on our health and our survival. As you look at the rate of chronic disease and obesity has played a direct link in in the deaths of people, as we've gone throughout this pandemic, and we keep ignoring the root cause of why we are so sick as a country. You look statistically, we spend more money than every other country. We take more medications than every country on earth combined. Okay, we have higher rates of chronic disease. We have a lower life expectancy. It just keeps getting lower and lower. Okay, 133 Americans deal with chronic disease. Okay, obesity has doubled and then tripled and then quadrupled in our adolescence. Okay. We prioritize managing disease over actually keeping people well, okay? And I don't know about you guys, that's wrong, right? Okay? So now it equates to sick care, okay? And then really the flaw in our healthcare system is the fact that, we're treating disease as opposed to preventing it, okay? So 81% of hospitalizations, 91% of all prescriptions filled, 76% of all physicians visits are due to chronic disease, and it's just going to continue to go up and up. We're at 130 million. It's going to go up to 164 million within the next 3 years. Okay. Of course, the rate of obesity and being overweight. Okay. 2/3 of Americans are considered overweight. Half of those people are considered obese, and many morbidly so. Okay, 35% of adults is considered obese. Okay, and that now has bled over into our kids. Okay, is because where do our kids learn it? They learn it from us. Okay, so now it's almost 1 in 5 kids is considered overweight. Is considered obese. Okay, 1 in 5, and 1/3 of all kids, 1 in 3 kids, is overweight. Okay, and along with that, and the CDC, of course, well, why does this happen? Well, we know the main causes of it is lifestyle. okay, is that kids and teenagers consume 13% of their daily calories from fast food, okay? Empty calories, processed food. I can show you guys the McDonald's hamburger I have from 2014 that looks exactly like it did in 2014, okay? Sugary drinks, kids, average child in the United States now drinks 30 gallons of soda every year. Yeah. So, and we asked the question, well, why is this happening? Well, we know the reason, but we're not doing anything about it. And what that's now bled into is the rate of not just chronic disease in adults, but in the kids, because now we're seeing kids with adult conditions, okay? Asthma, 6.1 million kids. Diabetes is 210,000 kids. Obesity is 14 million kids. ADHD, depression, 1.9 million kids. What do kids have to be depressed about? Okay? Anxiety is 4 million kids deal with anxiety. Do you think this pandemic has helped anything? It's just made it worse and worse. Malnutrition. We are the most overfed and malnourished country in the world. Okay? We're now seeing kids as young as 12 years old already start having plaquing of their arteries, okay, on cholesterol medications. And for those of you in the older generations, you probably would know this even better than I would, were these diseases around when you were kids? Okay, maybe they were, but just very rare. Even for myself, who was born in the 80s, I'll just say that, born after a lot of you guys got out of school and everything. So is even in my generation, I didn't see my classmates having a lot of the chronic conditions, asthma, needing inhalers, having to have EpiPens because at any second they could go into a shock for that, with some sort of reaction, okay? Those things weren't around, and it just seems like they keep getting worse and worse and worse, okay? So we got to do something about it because our kids' health is declining. A lot of you heard me share that our life expectancy here in the United States went down by 14 months, which is the biggest drop that it's seen since World War II, okay? And they blame it on COVID. Well, the reality is it's not COVID, it's the fact that our kids just keep getting sicker, okay? So what's the solution is we got to change. And unfortunately for our older generations, it's maybe a little bit too late for some of us, okay? However, it doesn't matter where you're at. There's still ways you can improve your health. Doesn't matter where your health is right now and how old you are. There's always things you can do to do better and to get closer to that potential that we're talking about. Okay, but the only way we're really going to change is we got to change our families. We got to start with our kids, okay? Because what they're going to do is they're going to impact the next generation and the next generation after that and the next generation after that. So if we don't break the cycle, it's only just keep getting worse, okay? So what's the solution? Really, it comes down to one thing. It's living what we call the MaxLiving lifestyle, okay? Like I said, we're a MaxLiving office. We teach the 5 essentials of health. These 5 essentials, they are things that they are absolutely essential. You need these to be healthy, okay? So those essentials are core chiropractic, nutrition, mindset, oxygen and exercise, and minimizing toxins. And this is how you're going to get well, okay? This is how we see our patients get well every single day, is using these things, okay? So what I want to do now is I'm just going to literally take you through the 5 essentials and things you can do to start applying those today, okay? So first thing we're going to start out is nutrition, okay? Because this is really the biggest impact, okay? And I don't think I need to spell it out, is what's the first place we need to start with when it comes to our kids?
No, sugar.
Sugar, okay? Sugar. How many of you feel, would you say you feel addicted to sugar? Yeah, I'll raise my hand because I've struggled with the addiction. Okay, so many people deal with the sugar addiction, and the reason is because every time you have sugar, it sparks dopamine. Dopamine is your feel-good hormone. Okay, so when you're eating sugar, it makes you feel good. So no wonder you would want it, right? Okay, but do you know? And every cell in our body likes sugar. Okay. But there's one cell above everything else that likes sugar more than all the other cells. Anybody know what it is? Cancer cells. Okay, cancer cells, which is why now the leading cause of death in kids is childhood cancer. Okay, And that's scary. And cancer cells love sugar, but what do our kids get more and more every year? They get more and more sugar. Okay, and that leads to this cycle again. Okay, 71 grams of sugar per day, 57 pounds of sugar every year is what we see. Okay, and again, going back to the sugary drinks, where does it come from? Okay, so we got to change the typical childhood diet. Okay, the other things that go along with that, though, is 15% of kids are eating the recommended servings of fruits and vegetables. 15%. Okay, that's it. Okay, 56% of Americans' kids have poor nutritional quality. I think that's a pretty obvious statement. 36%, 1 in 3 kids consumes fast food daily, at least one meal every day. Okay, 45% of kids eat no fruit. 20% eat less than 1 serving of vegetables per day. Okay, now it's a matter of is what they want to eat versus what they should eat. Okay, now what kid doesn't want to eat sugar? How many of you guys want to eat sugar? Yeah, again, all the addicts in there, raise your hand. Okay, but it's being able to differentiate those two, and I'll tell you, this is something that every parent learns, including myself. Okay, is because what does Weston want? He wants all the sugary stuff, and not that he's never had candy or cake or any of those things, so I don't think he quite fully realizes what he's missing. Okay.
Until he gets to school.
Yeah, till he gets to school. Well, and we'll see how that goes as well. But it's that steady progression. Okay, because the things that he does want is what we consider dessert, fruit. Okay, those are his favorite foods. Is the really because it's that sugar, it's that hit every time that he has even something low sugar like blueberries. Okay. But we got to start changing that around to not just what they want to eat, but what they need to eat and what they should eat. Okay, and really it comes down to is the 3 macronutrients as we talk about: fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Okay, number 1 is we got to get lots of healthy fats in there, and a variety of healthy fats. Okay, and eliminating the damaged and processed fats. Okay, now what are some examples of healthy fats? Olives, coconut, avocados, meats, fish, nuts, seeds. All those things have tons of healthy fat and are going to be great for your body. Okay, proteins. You want to select naturally raised, organic, ideally, sources of protein. Okay, so when you get your meats, that's the most important area to go organic is your grass-fed, organic, free-range beef, chicken, whatever it is. Okay. Because again, those are literally the building blocks of your body. Okay, all your muscles, all your organs are made up of these proteins, so you got to get good quality stuff in there. Okay, and then carbohydrates is eating more carbohydrates that are low in sugar and high in nutrients, nutrient-dense foods, and eating less of the quick, refined, fast-burning carbs. Okay, things like grains and breads and pastas and of course all the sugars that we were just talking about. Okay, removing the processed foods. Okay, is again all the fast foods, but it's not just the fast foods. It's when you walk through the grocery store and you see all these packaged, boxed foods that have a list of ingredients this long. Okay, of things that you can't pronounce. So obviously, probably not something that you want to eat, right? Okay, so getting to what we call food by God and not food by man. Food by God is food in its natural state. Again, whole foods, fruits and vegetables, the meats, the fats, the nuts and seeds, as opposed to those ingredients that all have the chemical names that you can't say. Okay. And it comes down to as simple as that. And the great thing about when it comes to our kids is no matter where they're at, they can always learn new habits. Okay, same thing with you guys. You can always learn new habits, but by changing those around, it can make a very rapid difference in how they're doing. And the other aspect of that is that it's so much easier to keep a child well than it is to fix a broken adult. Okay. So those of you who have been around MaxLiving, you've heard me talk about the advanced plan versus the core plan. Okay, the advanced plan is more intense. It's like you can't have any grains, you can't have any sugars. That's what we use for people trying to lose weight or trying to get off medications or reverse the chronic diseases, the heart diseases, the diabetes. Okay, but here's the thing: is if all we did was kept the child on the core plan, which is you can have grains and have them in moderation. You can have fruits, but have them in moderation. You can even have some processed foods every once in a while. I mean, nobody's gonna be perfect. I'm not perfect, and Weston's not perfect, okay? But by keeping them healthy, as opposed to waiting until they've done it for years and years and have all these diseases that they have to reverse, that's a lot harder to do, right? Okay? So, a lot of adults, they have to go through something a little bit more intense. We have to go through what we call diets to try to reverse the disease. But if we just kept ourselves well, we wouldn't have to go do those things, right? Okay? So again, I'm not gonna ask you to be perfect, but just being able to make those better decisions, okay? So some ways that we get kind of caught up in this is labeling, okay? We think, oh, that looks healthy. We see things like Nature's Valley or, fat-free or heart healthy. And most of the time when you see those labels, you can pretty much just throw it out the window because it means absolutely nothing, okay? I'm gonna throw one of our new additions, Angelique here, under the bus. She was trying to do something really nice for the team. And so she went out and got some healthy snacks. And I can't remember, it was Skinny something. Skinny Pop popcorn, okay? And I'm not gonna begrudge her that because, obviously she's very new and still learning, but she thought, oh, Skinny Pop, that looks healthy. And you look at the ingredients, you see rancid oils, you see, of course, popcorn. I'll tell you what, she actually did better than most people do, though. So I'll give her a hand for that one. So, yeah, the skinny. I want to be skinny. So we all see those things, okay? But it's meant that way. It's marketed to make you think that this is good for you, okay? And it's all a big ploy to get you to eat it and eat more of it, right? So being able to, again, just discern, okay? And that's where we go back to the food by God, is literally just looking at ingredients and saying, okay, what is actually in this? Are there a bunch of ingredients? Then no, probably want to avoid that, okay? So what foods should you choose? Those healthy fats that we were talking about earlier, okay? Choose a variety of colorful fruits and vegetables, okay? You want color in your diet. If it's all tan and bland, that's probably not going to be very good for you, okay? Whole grains is a way as well. Now again, whole grains are not bad when you don't have a chronic disease, okay? When you do have chronic disease, whole grains are gonna aggravate and make you more inflamed. Okay, but when you have whole grains and have them in moderation, not like the old food pyramid used to say is the entire base was whole grains, you wonder why we ended up where we did is because literally the people who were supposed to be telling us what to eat were telling us everything wrong. Okay? And they were saying low fat and no fat is the way to go. So again, it's like we're trying to break the habits of generations who grew up eating margarine, like my mom. Okay? And even that bled into my family. Okay? And then again, we already talked about the grass-fed organic meats. Okay? So it doesn't have to be complicated. Is again just eating more food in its natural state. Okay? The other thing we have to understand is that kids, really from the beginning, there's a lot that goes into their development. And, watching Weston grow and seeing him, learn these new things and seeing, maybe things that we missed. And, again, because nobody's perfect, and saying is, okay, well, what do we need to work on more with that? Kids go through a lot. They're literally, their bodies are growing for the span of 20 years and changing, and they hit adolescence. And, so understanding that there's a lot of things that go into that, not just physically, but mentally maturing, okay? And it's that rapid growth. You think of all the growth spurts they hit, their body's going through so much. All the organ systems that have to then, respond to that and grow along with it puts a lot of stress on the body. And, again, is adolescence and puberty is probably the biggest time because then we have all the hormone changes along with that, okay? But understanding how the lifestyle affects that. So when you go back to meats, for example, okay, when you eat conventional beef that's loaded up with hormones and loaded up with antibiotics, and fed corn, which makes them very acidic, what do you think that does to that child? It throws their hormones off. It throws it affects their immune system with all those antibiotics, and it can completely change the way their body grows and matures, which is again why we see massive increases of young girls hitting adolescence earlier and earlier. Okay, why is because all the hormones that they get fed throughout the course of years. Okay, and it just accumulates in the system. So we gotta be able to understand a little bit more about what they're going through and kind of help them through that journey. Okay, but helping them do it in a healthy way. All right. Now, one of the big other factors that we have to look at when it comes to our kids is the sedentary lifestyle. Okay, this also is one of the most significant contributors to poor health. Is lots and lots of time sitting and not moving. Okay, we as humans are meant to move. Okay, so when we have them sitting in school all day, not exercising, obviously that's probably not going to be very good for them. And of course, the more time we spend sitting, the more likely is we see chronic diseases, multiple diseases, and mortality. Okay, and 25% of our population is considered full-on sedentary. Okay. 55% of our population in the United States is sporadically active, and only 10% of adults actually get the necessary meet the standard guidelines when it comes to exercise. 10%, 1 in 10 adults actually get enough exercise. Okay, and again, where do our kids learn it? They learn it from us. Okay, they learn it from us as adults. So we got to get them moving. Okay. And that's what they're finding now is they're in schools. Those of you who are patients here, you've seen our wobble cushions, okay? And what they're doing is they're finding that movement actually stimulates learning. And so they're putting these wobble cushions in schools so the kids can be active and moving, and that actually helps facilitate their learning. And they learn better when they're able to be active. But you can't expect a 6-year-old kid to sit in a chair for 6 to 7 hours in a day and expect them not to want to move around. They've got so much energy they got to burn off. But not to mention just the fact that when it comes to exercise, it's our heart, it's our lungs, it's getting oxygen to our body. Ultimately, that's the whole purpose of exercise, is getting oxygen to all of our cells and making our body stronger. Okay, but it just really goes back to is all those statistics. I'm not going to read them all out here. Kind of understand is we got work to do. Okay. So what happens when they don't? It's all the stuff that we're talking about. Diabetes. Okay. What we used to call adult onset type diabetes is now we have to call it type 2 diabetes, is because all of a sudden now kids were starting to get diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So you can't call it adult onset if kids are getting it too. Okay, that's probably the biggest thing. And again, diabetes continues to go up and up. Okay, but how do you get your kids to work out? How do you get them to move? Well, really, what it comes down to is you got to focus on fun. Okay, you got to make it fun for them. Okay, if it's a chore, it's something you have to do, they're not going to do it. Okay, no matter how much you do it with them, they're still not going to do it. Okay, so you got to just make it fun. Just let them be active. Let them be a kid, right? Especially the younger they are, you gotta allow them to be able to do the things that they need to do. Okay, give your kids plenty of opportunities to be active. Okay, let them go outside during the summer. They've got to go run around. They've got to be able to do that. I don't care if you have to set up a treadmill in your basement and let them run on that for 20 minutes, and that'll just wear them out. Okay, but just also make sure you're choosing activities that the whole family can do. Okay, what do your kids want most? Is they want to be with you, okay? Or even your grandkids, is what do they want? They want to be with you. They want to be, they want your attention, and they're always striving for that. So find activities you can all do together. Go for a family hike, go out for a walk, a bike ride, whatever that is, okay? Figure out what you can do with your family, okay? The next thing, which, kind of goes into our sedentary lifestyle, obviously, is screen time, okay, our devices. We'll talk about tech neck in a little bit here, but you think of is all the times now that kids, even as adults, we spend just staring at screens, okay, sitting, of course, while we're doing it, okay, and 92% of 1-year-olds use mobile devices, okay? Roughly 20% of kids 14 to 17 spend 7 hours or more on screens, okay?
A day?
A day, okay? And you know what? They make these screens to do exactly what they're designed to do. So, you think of all the apps and stuff, they're designed to get your attention, okay? And this is one of those that, guys, is, again, nobody's perfect. I'm gonna throw myself under the bus because this is something I struggle with too, okay? Is Weston, he wants my attention. He wants to be there with dad and mom, but I'm a researcher, so I'm always looking at articles and stuff and how can I continue to educate myself. And so sometimes that phone gets you sucked in and, it's like this continual vying of attention. You hear that bing, it's designed to get you to go pick up that phone and use it more, okay? And so we have to be able to shut it off. And so we've made a rule in our household is at dinner table, no devices, okay? And when I walk in the door, have a special place for my phone to sit there so that I'm not using it. And I put it on silent so I'm not hearing it all the time, trying to look at it and see what unimportant thing is vying for my attention, okay? But, don't get me wrong, it's convenient, okay? It's convenient to put your child in front of the screen and let them hang out, but, it's just, especially when it comes to a lot of the cartoons, it literally just, it numbs them, and they don't have to use their brain. When you're watching TV, you're not using your brain, okay? So this also goes for adults as well, is too many adults go home at the end of the day and they turn on the TV and sit there for 3 hours. I should have gone to bed 2 hours ago, but you're still sitting there watching TV, okay? So, shut it off, read a book, do something to engage your brain, because they found is that too much, even of the TV leads to higher instances of Alzheimer's and neurodegenerative diseases, okay? So something that we can work on. Now, I already talked about just with the masks, and again, everybody makes their own decisions when it comes to this, okay? And I want everybody to be protected and feel comfortable and not to live in fear, okay? But at the same time, as understanding is if you're doing the right things, if you're living the five essential lifestyle, is the likelihood of you getting infected or getting affected by COVID goes significantly down, okay? They found vitamin D3 is one of the greatest determiners of whether somebody would be hospitalized or dies of COVID, okay? And the other aspect of that is, we lived for thousands of years as humans. We've survived this long without wearing masks, and then all of a sudden now we've changed our mindset to where we think that we absolutely need them, okay? But again, if you're doing the things that you should be doing, eating well, getting lots of exercise, sleeping well, your immune system goes way up and you're able to fight those things off significantly better, okay? The other thing to understand though is with your kids is helping influence them socially, okay, with their friends is, you've all heard the rule is you're the average. Your life is the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, okay? Well, especially as kids are younger, who do they spend the most time with? You. Now, I don't want anybody to answer this question, but I want you to think in your mind is, are you somebody that you would want your kids hanging out with? So, if you're not somebody you would want your kids hanging out with, somebody who is maybe more negative, who tends to, has lots of drama, you don't want that for your kids. So, working towards making yourself better from those aspects, because again, is they're going to follow what you do, okay? And as they get older, teaching them also how to discern who are good people to hang out with and who are maybe people I should not be hanging out with, that pull me down, that drag me down, okay? And I can look back at my life of all the people that, that I've hung out with and spent lots of time with, and was that a good influence or not? No. So it's just being very careful of who you spend your time with, because that can have a big impact on your life. You want to hang around people who are positive, who make you feel good, okay, and don't bring you down, and challenge you to maybe get better, okay. So maybe take a hard look at yourself, and that can reflect even into your kids as well. Okay. So, and then going back into that idea of, that our bodies are meant to heal, okay, it stems back to this system right here is your natural immune system, okay? We all have it, okay? It's the reason why you're able to fight off disease, okay? It's the reason why you can be in the same room as somebody else, they're sick as a dog, and you're like, nothing happened to me, okay? And there's some people who tend to be that more than others, of the people who get sick more often, okay? So you got to ask yourself, why do you maybe get sick more often than other people, okay? Or why, maybe your child, same thing. Why are they affected more often, okay? And the immune system, it's so complex, okay? Going through school and chiropractic school, getting my doctorate, is literally class after class, immunology 1, immunology 2, trying to understand all the facets of the immune system, and we still don't understand everything that there is with it, okay? But understanding is that when a pathogen or an infection gets into your body has an ability to be able to fight that, okay? To stop it from causing disease. They still teach in school the germ theory, okay? Louis Pasteur, he was the one who originated the germ theory. Okay? Did you guys know that Louis Pasteur, when he died, he said, I was wrong. The terrain is what matters. Okay? And what terrain is that's your body's environment and its ability to fight things off. Okay? Because we're exposed every single day to germs. A lot of you who maybe not have had COVID have probably been exposed to COVID, but your body has been fast enough to where it could kill the COVID before it actually took hold and infected you or became a full-blown infection, okay? Because you have like your innate immunity. That's your skin. That's your white blood cells. Those are things that are designed to keep the pathogens out, the acid in your stomach, okay? Your mucosal membranes, the earwax in your ears, all those things are designed, that's your innate immunity. Okay, the next one you have is your adaptive immunity, and that's really the bulk of your immune system. So when you are exposed to a pathogen, your body recognizes that as foreign. It says, hey, that shouldn't be in there, we need to kill it, okay? And it starts building up defenses to try to kill that, okay? And then after it kills it, it develops memory B cells, okay, which is, again, part of your immune system, and your body remembers those infections, which is why when it comes to, COVID is, if once you've had it, the likelihood that you would get it again, or even as anywhere near as severe, goes significantly down. Okay, and that's the other one. And then the other one is a programmed immunity. Okay, and that's the one we're going to talk about now. Okay, or the artificial immunity. All right. Now I'm just going to let you guys know I'm going to probably step on some toes. Okay, and when I do this, I do it out of love. Okay. Is because, when it comes to certain topics, you're only told one side of it, okay? A lot of times you're not getting balanced coverage, okay, when it comes to these things, okay? So, one of the biggest topics we're in right now is vaccines, okay? And like I said, this can be a really touchy subject, so I tread lightly, but at the same time, it's a conversation we have to have, okay? So, when it comes to vaccines, okay, and again, those of you in older generations, you probably know that when you were growing up, the number of vaccines you got was significantly lower, okay? 15, okay?
What we got as children in our age group.
Yeah, and I have no idea how many I got. My mom was a nurse, so I'm sure I got them all, okay? But 15, and I've heard even some of the older generations as low as like 6.
Yeah, we're in our 60s, so
Yeah.
15 was in the 60s.
Yep. So you look at what kids receive now is 70 doses between birth and 18 years of age. Okay, and that is what's considered mandatory by all 50 states. Okay, this is something that our federal government acknowledges that vaccines are done at high levels. Okay. It's so much so that in 2011, okay, our federal government, the U.S. Supreme Court, released a statement when it came to vaccines, and they said they are unavoidably unsafe. Okay, you can go back and look it up. That's a direct quote from one of our Supreme Court justices, that vaccines, you cannot sue manufacturers because they are unavoidably unsafe. Okay, the reason why that we have those, and of course, out of those 70 vaccines, more than half of those are before 15 months. Okay, which you think of even just one dose. Okay, one of the very first doses that of vaccines that kids get is your Hep B vaccine. Okay, when they're born, they give that. Okay, when you look at what's in those, though, it's kind of scary, is because one Hep B vaccine, okay, which kids aren't exposed to that unless their parent is using drugs, IV needles. They're not at risk for that, because how do you get it is sexual contact, and of course by sharing needles. Okay, they're giving this to newborn kids, and one dose of that, which you end up getting 3, one dose of that has 14 times more aluminum than what the FDA allows in any other product other than vaccines. Okay, now multiply that over the 6 different shots at 2, 4, and 6 months, 6 different shots. Taking that, now you're looking at 3 times 18 different shots. Okay, the amount of aluminum you're getting upwards of 100 times more aluminum than what is allowed. Okay, and that's not acknowledged. Okay, why do the number? You look at why do the numbers triple? Since the 1980s when it comes to vaccines, and really it comes down to the fact that in the early 80s, drug companies, who were the ones manufacturing the vaccines, started getting sued because, again, the U.S. Supreme Court said they're unavoidably unsafe. Okay, so there were reactions. Kids had problems. Okay, maybe not quite to the extent of what they do now, but there would be reactions, severe reactions for some kids, death even. Okay, and so drug companies said we're losing money because we're getting sued. So they passed a law saying that vaccine companies could not be sued for any reactions to vaccines. Okay, and then the reason that came up in 2011 is because somebody tried to sue because they found out that vaccine manufacturers were not making the good quality vaccines. They were not testing them properly, and so that there were even more reactions. And so the U.S. Supreme Court said even if any one of the companies, Moderna, Pfizer, whatever it is, if they just were straight out negligent and said, you know what, we're just going to do whatever with this vaccine, we're going to add impurities and stuff which have had happen, get in these vaccines, even if they do add those things and it causes a severe reaction because there's stuff in there that shouldn't be, you cannot go back and sue that drug company. Okay. Even with the emergency use authorization, you can't sue drug companies because, well, it's an emergency. We have to have it out there. Okay.
How do schools make your kid have to be vaccinated for certain things or they can't go to school?
Well, they say is, hey, if you don't have these shots, then you can't send them to school. Okay. Or that they're basically not allowed and you're going to have to homeschool them. Okay. And for some parents, that's just not an option. So it's, what do you have to do? You have to go. And of course, they keep eliminating any sort of exemptions. You used to have philosophical, religious, and medical, okay? But they got rid of the philosophical. So if they said, I just don't want to do vaccines for my children, you can't do that, okay? Because they got rid of it. It has to be religious or medical, okay? And now we run into COVID as they're slowly whittling away at the religious, okay? Because even now you have to get a church. And churches don't want to take part in that. They don't want to take a stand on that. And so they're kind of stepping back and saying okay, well, I can't help you. So now, no matter where you're at, we're struggling. And so I even had people come up to me and say, hey, can you write an exemption? And a lot of places they won't accept this because I'm not qualified, so to speak. Okay, but yeah, it's Chuck made this ultimately comes down to money. Okay, and I've shared this with my staff, is if in January 2020, before COVID, we even knew what COVID was. If you would have bought Moderna stock at like $18, okay, if you'd invested $1,000 in that, right now you'd have over $20,000 because that company has just absolutely skyrocketed, okay? So there is a level of money that just goes into these things, okay? So, and again, that's not always a popular thing, but what I always say is do your research, okay? Doesn't matter where you're at. If you choose to vaccinate your children, yourself, you have that right, okay? You absolutely have that right, and I support that right. I will support that right to the day I die, okay? However, if I choose not to, okay, that is freedom of choice, that is medical freedom, a right that we all have, okay? That we all are entitled. That's a God-given right that we all were blessed with here in the US of A. We're the land of the free. Sometimes it doesn't really feel like it, does it? Okay. And that law was the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986. That's the law they passed. And after that, when there was no longer liability, all of a sudden, vaccine after vaccine started coming to market. Okay. And they literally have hundreds of vaccines on the market, are in development at all times. Okay. Any disease, okay, whatever it is, flu, COVID, whatever the next pandemic is, they're going to have one ready to go, right for that, okay. So that's the point when the number of doses just absolutely skyrocketed. That's also around the same time when we started seeing the chronic disease start to develop, okay. So, what I always ask is with those of you who are even on the fence, okay, and considering it, do some research. Okay. If you're looking for help, I can give you some guidance on it, but absolutely is looking at the side effects. We have an entire court system devoted strictly to side effects from vaccines. Okay, it's the only way you can get money, but it's very difficult to be able to do so. Okay, but also what I ask is find organizations that are going to stand up for your rights no matter what it is. Okay, because right now it might be somebody else's problem. Okay, but eventually when you choose to make what's going in your body, it's going to come to you too. Okay, so we have to stand up for our freedom. Again, I don't care if you choose to vaccinate your kids, you still have to stand up for freedom. Okay, organization I support is Stand for Health Freedom. Great organization. It's actually co-founded by a wife of a MaxLiving doctor. So somebody I trust, and all their money is going into educating people and being able to make sure that they're maintaining our freedoms. Okay, so off my soapbox. Okay, hopefully your toes aren't too battered and bruised. Okay. So like I said, educating yourself, spending that time. The last thing that we have to look at, and really goes back into the idea of the vaccines and the toxicity with those, okay, is toxins are everywhere. Okay, we're all exposed to them. Unfortunately, kiddos, our kids now, when a child is born, they've done tests. Every child has at least 200 different toxins in their bloodstream. Okay, how could that be? The moment they're born, they took blood, and they found that they had over 200 toxins in their system. Where did it come from? Mom. Okay, it came from mom. Okay, and it probably didn't just come from mom, it came from mom's mom. And so now we're in this cycle again of each generation has more and more toxins, okay, which again is going to lead into these chronic diseases. They have more and more toxins because it just keeps accumulating, okay? So we have to break the cycle by stop putting the chemicals in, okay? That goes not just the vaccines, it goes to household products, the things that we're putting into our body, the things we're eating, that we're drinking, okay? So think of all the cleaners that you use in your household, okay? You put those on surfaces, you touch those surfaces, and then you potentially, touch your body, touch your face, okay? You put your home care, personal care products on your body. Those things leach through your skin, okay? They get inside of you, okay? The long-term ramifications really develop into inflammation, and again, inflammation is the leading cause of chronic disease, okay? With kiddos, though, we have to look at other things, toys and plastics, okay? For a while there, we had to worry about lead paint from toys coming from China, okay? We still have to worry about those things, okay? If it's not lead, it's something else. BPA in plastic water bottles, and really any plastic, PVC, phthalates, flame retardants, lead, cadmium. Those are things that most kids are being exposed to. And again, is why do we see this increase in childhood cancer? It goes back to the inflammation and the toxicity, okay? So, and plastics, like I said, that's probably one of the most common things that we see, even for myself as I grew up, my family, when we wanted lunch or dinner, okay, and we had leftovers, we'd put a plastic container and put it in the microwave. And you see that stuff melt in the microwave, that plastic. Oh, I kind of cringe of all the stuff I put myself through, okay? So again, these are all things that we all have to worry about, so you got to detox, okay?
Back then
We didn't know.
Now we know.
Now we know, and now we do better, okay? The last one we got to talk about, though, and really comes back into is especially as kids grow, is the nerve system and really the spinal development, okay? When it comes to spine, really the most important piece of the spine is the nerve system, okay? There's a lot of factors that affect our spine. There's genetic factors, there's activity, there's nutrition. They all have a role in that. However, is the most important to understand is subluxation, okay? And subluxation is a misalignment of the spine, okay? Is understanding that your spine's job is not just to keep us all upright and standing straight, okay? Your spine's job is really about protecting the most important system in your body, which is what? The nerve system, okay? Your skull surrounds your brain. You got 24 bones that make up your spine. Kids actually have 33, is because the sacrum and the coccyx are actually multiple bones, and they eventually fuse together, become larger bones as you get older, once you hit adolescence, okay? But it's that protection, okay? And so when your spine's balanced, what happens is all those messages, every second of your life that's telling your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, for your body to function, okay, is making sure that communication happens back and forth so you're still living, okay? Those messages go out. And the spine's job is protect the spinal cord, basically your hard line, to the rest of your body. But when the spine shifts out of alignment, okay, what does it do to the nerves? It pinches, okay? You put a kink in the garden hose, what's going to happen to your garden?
No water.
It's not going to get water. It's going to die, right? Okay. As my mentor, Dr. Joe, says, are you going to get green grass or brown grass?
Right.
You're going to get brown grass, and eventually brown grass turns to what? It turns to dead grass. Okay. That's what happens to your organs. Okay. And so subluxation is when the misalignment happens and it cuts off that communication. It puts a kink in the garden hose so that your garden is no longer getting watered, and it makes your body sick. Okay. How do you know that? Well, symptoms is one way, because when you have a pinched nerve, it can show up as back pain, neck pain, headaches, but it can also show up as the other things. It can show up as acid reflux or indigestion. It can show up as thyroid problems. It can show up as allergies. It can show up as asthma. It can show up as irritable bowel syndrome, whatever basically disease of your body, okay? And you can throw all the medication out the world at it, okay? But if you have pressure on the nerves, is any medication going to fix that? No. So you get to get the cause, okay? And of course, to understand is what are the causes, okay? Well, some of the stuff we were just talking about, technology, okay? We were talking about sitting at screens all day, okay? What do people do when they sit at screens? They do this, okay? So what happens to the spine is we see it go from curve, which you develop when you start crawling, your ability to look up as kids, develop the curves in their neck. But then what happens is after that, when they start walking and sitting and they spend all this time on screens, is that starts to straighten again. And for a lot of times, it will start to go back to what we call tech neck, okay? Tech neck is the most devastating thing that our kids are dealing with today. And we see this explosion of things like ADD and ADHD, okay? Well, one of the main causes of that is sympathetic nerve system stress, okay? Your fight or flight response, basically the thing that when you see a bear and you have to run away or you have to fight that bear, the thing that makes your body do everything that it's supposed to do, increase your blood pressure, is all controlled through that sympathetic nervous system. So if it's continued being stimulated, those kids are going to live in a sympathetic state. And adults live in it too, is because when you're sitting in traffic, you activate your sympathetic nervous system and you do this, and all that pressure starts to happen. So you got to get the root cause. So symptoms is one way, but the most important test to check the health of your nerve system is an x-ray, okay? A structural x-ray of the spine to see what's happening, where the spine's misaligned and where there's damage in the nerves, okay? And if you can find, if there is subluxation, be able to correct that, making sure that your body is able to adapt and heal. And ultimately, where does that power that we talked about earlier, the power to be able to heal, where does it come from? It comes from the nerve system, okay? So taking care of that is the most important thing. The great thing, and the reason why most kids don't have the problems that adults deal with, is because their bodies respond better, okay? They respond faster. So the kids actually go through a lot more, so their body has to be better able to adapt to those, okay? But the problem is when those things happen as a kid, think of all the things that you did to damage your spine, all the falls and all the crashes on your bike, and all the time that your children might spend looking at screens. Now take that over the course of 20 years and all the damage that that does, and we wonder why more and more adults have more and more problems, okay? So making sure that we're going to be able to help their bodies adapt, not just through childhood, but all the way into adulthood as well, okay? So chiropractic care is one of the most beneficial things, and I've been doing this for a decade now, and I'll tell you, chiropractic babies are the healthiest babies. One of the first things I did with Weston when we got him, when we adopted him, was adjusted his spine, okay? Because he always looked to the right. Everything was always to the right. So as we adjusted him, his head finally started going straight, and then it would go back, and then we'd adjust it and it'd go back. And so, now he's walking and falling. He has all these traumas that we have to manage, okay? But chiropractic babies, they deal with less colic. They deal with less infections. They don't get sick as often. They take less antibiotics. They have less ADD, ADHD. They're just healthier kids, okay? So obviously when you see all the babies that we adjust, one of my favorite things to do. I used to go to the hospital and adjust newborn babies. Obviously can't do that anymore because of COVID, but we still have our moms bring their babies in and we'll adjust them. One of my favorite things, okay? So in order to help support that, not just through the nervous system, not just through nutrition, is we have to supplement, okay? Because again, most kids aren't getting the nutrients they need, okay? So two things we look at when it comes to kids: probiotics, okay? Because gut health is one of the most important things as far as your immune system goes, and then multivitamins. Because again, if they're eating anywhere near what the standard kid eats, they're just not getting enough nutrients. So you got to make sure you're supplementing that, okay? However, all these things I'm talking about apply to adults as well, okay? So you can't expect to treat yourself poorly and not put the nutrients in, and then to be able to take care of your kids the way you're supposed to. So you got to make sure you're putting good fuel in as well, okay? So Pure Path multivitamin, which is something new that we're just releasing here. It's a powder that you can actually take and put it in smoothies. Daily essentials, the main daily essentials you need. Everybody needs these things: D3, magnesium, omega, a multivitamin, and B complex. Okay, so across the board, those are all things that we need on a daily basis. You should get it from your food, but most people don't get it. Okay, so you got to make sure you supplement. All right. So your action steps walking away. Okay. Number 1, cut the sugar. Right. Okay. Number 2, get you and your kids moving. Okay. Number 3 is have your nervous system checked. Okay, and really that number 3 should be number 1. If you've never had your nervous system checked, get it checked. Knowing what's happening with your spinal nervous system is the most important thing. Okay? So it's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be complicated. Again, keep yourself well. It's going to be a lot easier on you. So thank you guys for coming. God bless you. And we will see y'all soon.